You know that specific moment, right before sleep takes you, when the room is pitch black and the only sound is the breathing of the person next to you? For most wives, I assume that sound is comforting. A rhythmic reminder that they are safe, that they are loved. For me, lying in that king-size bed with the Egyptian cotton sheets I had picked out, that sound was like nails on a chalkboard. It was a wet, heavy wheeze. A nasal whistle that signaled the end of my freedom and the beginning of another night of pretending. My skin would literally crawl when he rolled over. I would freeze, praying to a God I didn't believe in that he would just stay on his side, that he wouldn't reach out with those clammy, warm hands to touch my waist. But he always did. And I would always flinch, just for a millisecond, before forcing my body to relax, forcing my lips into a smile he couldn't even see in the dark. That is not how marriage is supposed to feel, is it? But here I am. Or rather, here I was. My name is Valerie. I am 34 years old. And if you ask anyone in our social circle or what is left of it, they will tell you I am the villain of this story. They will say I was cold, calculated, that I used a good man and threw him away like last season's purse. And sure, maybe looking at the facts, they have a point. But facts are cold, hard things that do not account for feelings. Do I deserve some credit for trying? I spent 4 years holding my breath. 4 years playing the role of the devoted wife and stepmother. Doesn't that count as a sacrifice? To understand how my life exploded into a million jagged pieces, you have to understand where I started. 5 years ago, I was not Valerie, the lifestyle influencer with the perfectly curated Instagram feed. I was Valerie, the exhausted cocktail waitress at a dive bar in downtown Chicago. I was 29, drowning in credit card debt, and raising my 2-year-old son, Toby, completely on my own. Toby's father was a drummer in a band that never made it out of a garage. He took off the moment the pregnancy test showed 2 pink lines, leaving me with nothing but a broken heart and a fear of eviction notices. That is when Gareth walked into the bar. He was not my type. Not even close. My type was dangerous. Leather jackets, tattoos, eyes that promised trouble. Gareth was safe. Painfully safe. He was a civil engineer who specialized in municipal water systems. Sewage, basically. He was stocky, with a hairline that was already retreating in surrender and a face that was round and soft, like unbaked dough. He wore these terrible polo shirts that were always tucked in too tight, emphasizing the slight paunch hanging over his belt. But he tipped 50%. He would come in every Thursday, order a light beer, and just listen to me complain about my feet, my landlord, or the cost of daycare. He didn't stare at my chest like the other guys. He looked at my eyes. He had this laugh, a sort of snorting chuckle that made me want to roll my eyes. But he was kind. The turning point wasn't romantic. It was practical. My babysitter bailed on me one rainy Tuesday. I had to bring Toby to the bar and hide him in the manager's office with an iPad. But he escaped. He ran right out into the tap room, tripping over a bar stool and skinning his knee. I panicked. I thought I was going to get fired. But before I could even drop my tray, Gareth was there. He scooped Toby up, sat him on the bar, and started doing these ridiculous magic tricks with a bar napkin to make him stop crying. I watched this man I had zero attraction to, wipe my son's tears with a tenderness I had never seen in my life. I looked at his soft hands. I looked at his kind, boring face. And I made a decision. It wasn't a decision made with my heart. It was a decision made with my calculator. I decided that I could learn to love him. Or at least, I could learn to love the safety he provided. We started dating. It was easy. Gareth was so grateful just to be seen with me. He treated me like a trophy he couldn't believe he had won. He paid off my credit cards. He moved us out of my cramped apartment and into his spacious, 4-bedroom house in the suburbs. He set up a college fund for Toby before we had even been together for 6 months. My friends told me I had hit the jackpot. He adores you, Val, they would say. Look at how he looks at you. And rationally, I knew they were right. He was the perfect provider. But there was always this voice in the back of my head, a whisper that got louder every time he leaned in for a kiss. I don't want this. I would close my eyes and try to focus on the stability. I would focus on the new car in the driveway, the full fridge, the way Toby laughed when Gareth chased him around the yard. I told myself that physical attraction was shallow, that it would grow. That being a good mother meant choosing a father for my son, not a lover for myself. So when he proposed, getting down on one knee in a crowded restaurant with a ring that cost more than my old annual salary, I said yes. I smiled. I cried. I let him slip that heavy diamond onto my finger. But deep down, I wasn't crying tears of joy. I was crying because I felt the steel bars of the cage slamming shut. A golden cage, yes, but a cage nonetheless. The changes didn't happen overnight. They were slow, creeping in like mold in a damp basement. By our third anniversary, Gareth had been promoted to a senior director position. That meant less time at construction sites and more time at a desk. And with the stress of the new job came the weight. He had never been thin, but now he was undeniably heavy. His neck seemed to disappear into his shoulders. His stomach hung over his waistband in a way that made his shirts strain at the buttons. He developed sleep apnea, so his snoring sounded like a freight train running through our bedroom every night. Meanwhile, I was flourishing. With Gareth's money and Toby in private school, I had time. I hired a personal trainer. I spent hours at the spa. I started a lifestyle blog, posting photos of our perfect family life, giving advice on home decor and parenting. I looked better than I ever had in my 20s. Gareth looked like he had aged 10 years in 3. The contrast was humiliating. When we went out to dinner, I saw the looks. People would look at me fit, styled, glowing, and then look at him sweaty, overweight, balding. I could hear their thoughts. He must be rich. And he was. But that didn't stop the resentment from building in my chest like bile. I started living a double life. At home, I was the dutiful wife. I cooked healthy meals that he would cover in cheese or ranch dressing. I organized his schedule. I played the part. But I created boundaries. I started going to bed 2 hours before him, claiming I needed my beauty sleep, just to avoid the awkwardness of him trying to initiate sex. When we did have to be intimate, usually on holidays or anniversaries, I developed a coping mechanism. I would turn off every light in the room. I would insist on total darkness, and then I would close my eyes and go somewhere else. I would think about the personal trainer at my gym. I would think about Toby's biological father, remembering the raw, electric passion we used to have, even if he was a loser. I would think about random men I saw at the grocery store, anyone but the man breathing heavily on top of me. Outside of the house, I was a different person. My best friend, Monica, was my escape. Monica was single, bitter, and loved chaos. She was the devil on my shoulder. We would go out for networking events for my blog, which were really just excuses to dress up in short dresses and drink expensive martinis at downtown hotel bars. "You deserve to feel alive, Val," Monica would whisper to me, eyeing a group of businessmen across the room. "Look at you. You are a Ferrari parked in a garage designed for a minivan." I loved hearing that. It validated my cruelty. It made me feel like the victim. I started flirting. It was harmless at first. A lingering touch on a stranger's arm, giving out a fake number, dancing a little too close to someone on the dance floor. It was a rush. It made me feel desirable, something I never felt at home with Gareth. Gareth, of course, was oblivious. He was too busy being super dad. He and Toby were inseparable. Gareth coached Toby's little league team. He helped him with his science projects. He was the room parent at school. He did everything right. He never questioned where I was. He never checked my phone. He trusted me implicitly, and his trust made me despise him even more. It felt like weakness. Why didn't he fight for me? Why didn't he get jealous? Why was he so pathetic, just waiting at home with a plate of warmed-up dinner while I was out living my life? I started spending more money. It was a punishment. If I had to sleep with him, he was going to pay for it. I bought designer bags I didn't need. I booked weekends away at luxury resorts for wellness retreats. One night, Gareth sat me down at the kitchen table. He was wearing his reading glasses, looking over the credit card statements. "Valerie," he said gently, "we need to talk about the spending. $5,000 at Saks this month? We have the money, but we are trying to save for the lake house, remember?" I snapped. "Oh, so now you are controlling me?" I hissed, slamming my water glass down. "I raise your son. I run this house. I keep your social calendar alive because God knows you couldn't do it, and you are worried about a few dresses? Maybe if you spent a little money on a gym membership or some clothes that didn't come from a warehouse store, I wouldn't have to spend so much trying to make us look presentable." It was a low blow. I saw the hurt flash in his eyes. He looked down at his stomach, then back at the papers. "I'm sorry," he mumbled. I'm just tired, Val. Work has been brutal. He apologized. He always apologized. I stormed upstairs, feeling a sick sense of victory. I had won. But as I looked at myself in the vanity mirror, applying my night cream, I didn't feel like a winner. I felt trapped. I pulled out my phone and opened Instagram. I posted a picture of the flowers Gareth had sent me the day before. Caption: so lucky to be loved by a man who treats me like a queen. Number blessed. Number hubby love. I waited for the likes to roll in, needing that dopamine hit to drown out the sound of Gareth's heavy footsteps coming up the stairs. The beginning of the end happened in June. Gareth's sister Clara hosted a massive summer solstice party at her new property out in the countryside. It was the social event of the season for his family. Everyone was there: cousins, colleagues, old friends. I had spent weeks preparing. I bought a stunning white sundress that showed off my tan. I had my hair professionally blown out. I wanted to look perfect. Gareth, on the other hand, was a disaster. He had been working overtime on a crisis with the city's water filtration system and hadn't slept in 2 days. He looked gray. At the party, he immediately went to man the grill, standing over the hot coals in 90-degree heat. I stayed on the patio, sipping chilled white wine with Monica, who had tagged along as my +1 since she knew Clara. God, look at him, Monica sneered, nodding toward Gareth. He was wearing swim trunks that were too long and a faded t-shirt that was clinging to his sweaty back. He was laughing with his brother, holding a hot dog in one hand and a beer in the other. He looks like he is going to have a heart attack any second, I muttered, taking a large gulp of wine. You are a saint, Val, Monica said, pouring me more wine. I don't know how you do it. I would literally vomit if I had to wake up to that every morning. The alcohol was hitting me fast in the heat. The frustration I had been bottling up for months was bubbling to the surface. Then, the pool incident happened. Toby and his cousins were screaming for Gareth to do a cannonball. Being the dad that he is, he couldn't say no. He put down his tongs and walked toward the pool. He took off his t-shirt. I audibly gasped. His skin was pale, almost translucent in the bright sun. His chest was soft, almost feminine. His stomach hung over his trunks. I looked around. I saw the other wives, women with fit, attractive husbands, glancing at him and then looking away politely. I saw the pity in their eyes. Or maybe I imagined it, but in that moment, I felt like I was burning with shame. He jumped in. Splash. The water went everywhere. He surfaced, sputtering and laughing, shaking his head like a wet dog. Toby was cheering. Yay, Dad! I couldn't take it. I turned on my heel and marched to the back of the garden, where a secluded gazebo sat behind a row of hedges. Monica followed me with the wine bottle. We sat there for an hour, drinking and trashing him. I just can't do it anymore, I said, my voice slurring slightly. The filter was gone. I look at him and I feel repulsed. Is that a bad word? Repulsed. It is honest. Monica egged me on. I literally have to close my eyes, I confessed, speaking louder now. I have to fantasize that he is anyone else. I think about the guy at the gym. I think about my ex, Mark. I think about the pool boy. Anyone. Just to get through it. It is like a chore. Like taking out the trash. I laughed. A harsh, cruel sound. I married a wallet, Monica. A walking, talking, breathing wallet. And now the wallet is getting fat and disgusting, and I am stuck. But he is good to Toby, Monica said, playing devil's advocate mockingly. So is a golden retriever, I shouted. That doesn't mean I want to sleep with one. I sacrificed my youth for security. But this is too much. I am too pretty for this life. I should be with someone who matches me. I took another drink, feeling righteous. Sometimes I wish I had just cheated on him for real. At least then, I would have some good memories to get me through the horror show of his touch. I heard a twig snap. I spun around. Standing just beyond the hedge, near the entrance to the gazebo, was Gareth. He wasn't holding a plate of food. He wasn't holding a towel. He was just standing there, dripping wet, water pooling around his bare feet in the dirt. His face was unreadable. It wasn't angry. It wasn't sad. It was completely blank. Like someone had reached inside and turned off the main power switch. He looked at me. He looked at Monica. Gareth, I started, my heart hammering against my ribs. The alcohol evaporated instantly. We were just joking. You know how girls talk. He didn't speak. He looked me up and down, as if seeing me for the first time. Not as his wife, but as a stranger. Then, he turned around and walked away. He didn't go back to the party. He walked straight to his car, still in his wet swim trunks, got in, and drove away. He left me there. He left Toby there. I stood in the gazebo, the silence of the garden deafening, realizing that the golden cage door had just swung wide open, but not in the way I had wanted. The drive home was excruciating. I had to beg Clara to drive me and Toby back to the suburbs. I told her Gareth had a work emergency. She looked suspicious, but she didn't push. When I got home, Gareth's car was in the driveway. The house was dark. I expected a fight. I walked in, ready to defend myself. I had my speech prepared. I was drunk, I was venting. You are overreacting. Maybe if you lost weight, I wouldn't feel this way. I was ready to turn it around on him, to make him apologize for eavesdropping. But there was no fight. Gareth was in the guest bedroom on the first floor. The door was locked. I knocked. Gareth? Open the door. We need to talk. Silence. Don't be childish, Gareth. I am sorry, okay? I drank too much wine. Nothing. For the next 3 days, Gareth became a ghost. He would wake up before me. He would get Toby ready for school and drive him. When I woke up, the house was empty. When he came home from work, he would go straight to the guest room. He didn't eat dinner with us. He didn't watch TV. The silence was heavier than any screaming match. It was a physical weight in the house. It suffocated me. I tried to provoke him. I left my dirty dishes on the counter, knowing he hated mess. He washed them without a word. I turned the music up loud. He put on noise-canceling headphones. I texted him. Are you going to ignore me forever? This is emotional abuse, you know. Read. 8:42 p.m. No reply. By the 5th day, my anxiety was morphing into anger. Who was he to punish me? I was the prize. I was the one who had stayed despite his looks. I decided to hurt him back. I put on my tightest dress. I put on red lipstick. I walked into the kitchen where he was making a sandwich for Toby. I am going out with Monica, I announced. Since you aren't interested in being a husband, maybe I will find someone who is. I waited for the explosion. I wanted him to grab my arm, to beg me to stay, to yell at me. Anything to prove he still cared. Gareth didn't even look up from the sandwich. He carefully cut the crusts off the bread, exactly the way Toby liked it. Have fun, he said. His voice was flat, monotone. It sounded like a robotic GPS voice. I stood there, stunned. He didn't care. I stormed out. I went to a bar. I drank too much. I texted an old ex-boyfriend, asking if he was up. I wanted to burn it all down. I wanted to do something that would force Gareth to react. I came home at 3 a.m., stumbling, smelling of gin and cheap cologne. Gareth was sitting in the living room. The lights were on. Finally, I slurred, dropping my purse on the floor. Ready to talk now? He stood up. He was wearing a suit, not his work clothes. A sharp, charcoal suit I had never seen before. Yes, he said. Sit down, Valerie. The way he said my name sent a shiver down my spine. It wasn't the voice of the man who cried during Finding Nemo. It was the voice of a man who solved problems for a living. I sat on the edge of the sofa, trying to look defiant. What is with the suit? I asked. I have a meeting with my lawyer in 2 hours, he said calmly. I wanted to give you these first. He slid a thick manila envelope across the coffee table. Divorce papers? I scoffed. Really? You are going to throw away 4 years of marriage because I hurt your feelings at a party? No, he said. I am ending this marriage because it was never real. He opened a laptop that was sitting on the table. You said you married a wallet, Gareth said, his eyes locking onto mine. You were right. I am a wallet. But I am also a forensic accountant by training, Valerie. Did you forget that? Before I managed engineers, I managed audits. So, he continued, I know everything. He turned the laptop screen toward me. It wasn't just a spreadsheet. It was a timeline. This is a log of every time you transferred money from our joint account to your private emergency account. That is technically embezzlement of marital funds. He clicked a button. This is a record of your location data from your car's GPS. You told me you were at the gym on Tuesday nights. But the car was parked at the motel on 5th Street, 3 times last month. My mouth went dry. I hadn't slept with anyone there. I had just met Mark to talk and smoke, but it looked damning. And this, he said, pulling out a printed transcript. This is from the security camera on Clara's patio. The audio is crystal clear. I have to close my eyes. I fantasize about anyone else. He is repulsive. He read the words without emotion. Hearing them coming from his mouth was horrifying. Gareth, I didn't mean it. You meant every word, he interrupted. And honestly, I could forgive the spending. I could maybe even forgive the lying about where you were. But I cannot forgive the contempt. You hate me, Valerie. You have hated me since the day we met. I gave you a son, I shouted, desperate now. I gave you a family. You gave me a son, he agreed. And I love Toby more than life itself, which is why I am keeping the house, and why I am filing for primary custody. You can't do that. I can, he said simply. I have the stability, I have the income, and I have proof that you have a drinking problem and a history of erratic behavior. My lawyer is very confident. He stood up and walked to the door. You have until noon to pack your things. You can go to your parents' house. I have already called your mother and told her you are coming. You called my mother? I gasped. I didn't want you to have nowhere to go, he said. I am not a monster, Valerie. I am just done paying for a performance. I loved you. I lied. I screamed it. I loved you. He paused at the door. He looked back at me, and for a second, I saw the sadness. No, Val, he whispered. You loved the lifestyle. You tolerated the man. Then he walked out. The divorce was brutal. Gareth wasn't mean. He didn't try to destroy me. He was just efficient. He cut off the credit cards. He presented the evidence. The judge looked at the video from the party, looked at my spending habits, and looked at Gareth stable, calm, prepared. I got visitation every other weekend. I got a small settlement, enough to get an apartment, but not enough to maintain my influencer lifestyle. I had to move back in with my parents in the city. I had to get a job. I started waiting tables again at 34. My friends? Monica stopped calling when I couldn't pay for the bottle service anymore. The other moms at Toby's school unfollowed me on Instagram. I became a pariah, the woman who used the nice guy and got caught. But the real punishment came 11 months later. It was a Tuesday. I was waiting outside Toby's school to pick him up for a dentist appointment. I was sitting in my old Honda, checking my makeup in the rearview mirror. I looked tired. The stress lines were deepening around my mouth. Then, a black SUV pulled up. Gareth got out. I almost didn't recognize him. He had lost at least 40 pounds. The gut was gone. His shoulders looked broad and strong in a fitted navy sweater. He had shaved his thinning hair into a clean, modern buzz cut. He had a beard, a groomed, dark beard that defined his jawline. He didn't look like the doughy, soft man I had married. He looked masculine, powerful. And he wasn't alone. A woman stepped out of the passenger side. She wasn't flashy. She didn't have fake lashes or designer logos on her bag. She was wearing jeans and a simple white blouse. Her name was Elena, I had heard from Toby. She was a landscape architect. She was laughing at something Gareth said. She reached out and fixed the collar of his shirt, her hand lingering on his chest. Gareth looked down at her. And then I saw it. The smile. Not the apologetic, eager to please smile he used to give me. This was a real smile. A confident smile. The smile of a man who knows he is adored. Toby ran out of the school gates. Dad! Elena! He launched himself into Gareth's arms. Gareth caught him easily, spinning him around. Elena rubbed Toby's back, asking him about his day. They looked like a unit. A fortress. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I had spent 4 years thinking I was the prize. I had thought Gareth was lucky to breathe the same air as me. I had treated him like an accessory, an ATM, a joke. I watched them walk toward the SUV. Gareth opened the door for Elena, placing a protective hand on her lower back. He glanced toward the parking lot. His eyes met mine through the windshield. There was no anger, there was no longing, there was just nothing. He looked at me the way you look at a stranger in traffic. Indifferent. Unbothered. He got in the car and drove away, taking my son, his new life, and the happiness I had been too shallow to see. I looked at my reflection in the mirror again. I was still beautiful, technically, but my eyes looked empty. I realized then that Gareth hadn't been the trap. My own vanity was the cage. And now, sitting alone in a parking lot with a maxed-out credit card and a lonely apartment waiting for me, I knew I would never find the key. Karma, it turns out, is quiet. It doesn't scream. It just waits for you to tell the truth, and then it holds you to it.